After a brutal end to his first and what seems only season with the Houston Rockets and James Harden, Russell Westbrook has reportedly demanded a trade. Russ wants to be the focal point of an NBA offense, and with Mike D'Antoni leaving and Eric Gordon reportedly frustrated with his six-man role, it's no surprise that Westbrook would want out. The trade rumors for Russ have already been stirring for days now, but where could Westbrook actually end up? Russ is going to be 32 years old heading into his 13th NBA season, coming off a year where he yet again failed to reach anywhere near an NBA title. The biggest hurdle to Westbrook getting his wish granted is his massive $44 million deal that will last until his 16th NBA season at age 35. So with that in mind, here are 4 of my most probable Westbrook trade scenarios. Option 1. The salary boom. One of the teams actually able to absorb the majority of Westbrook's salary over the next 3 years also happens to be the most hopeless team of the last decade, the Charlotte Hornets. The Hornets have a legitimate pitch to be a primary option for a Westbrook trade. They have the 3rd overall pick, plenty of salary cap room, and quality role players that could immediately be plugged in around James Harden. This trade would send Russ to the Hornets in exchange for Terry Rozier, Malik Monk, and Miles Bridges, along with the 3rd overall pick and another first-round pick in years to come. Even though Russell is a disgruntled asset, his value to a franchise looking for some relevance like Charlotte cannot be understated. The Rockets will probably not accept anything less than multiple first-round picks and a couple of young players, and the 3 included here fit for the Rockets. Terry Rozier can be an off-ball player like he was in Boston, providing a young partner to James Harden. Malik Monk and Miles Bridges provide shooting, athleticism, and depth to the Rockets, who I could see giving Bridges significant minutes with his defensive versatility. This trade seems like the most probable, but we haven't seen the post-Rockets without Daryl Morey, so anything is possible. Option number 2, the complainer swap. Victor Oladipo was outed earlier this week for quite literally asking teams he was facing to trade for him. It only seems right that 2 players that want to leave their teams would grant each other's wishes. The salary was definitely a problem when attempting a Westbrook-Oladipo swap. To balance out the salaries a bit, as well as ensure there's enough talent from the Pacers side to justify a trade, Jeremy Lamb would be sent over to provide another shooting guard. Lamb could also help in dealing with the Eric Gordon situation, providing a replacement if Gordon were to be traded as well. The trade itself includes Oladipo, Lamb, a cap hold dump in Elise Johnson, as well as a top 3 protected first-round pick from the Pacers. I definitely think Houston will be looking to gain some draft capital back when dealing away Westbrook, so adding in a first-round pick next year can be a sweetener for Houston in this trade. With this deal, the Rockets have an athletic, defending guard in Oladipo, gain some added bench depth in Jeremy Lamb, and a first-round pick to top it off. This swap of Russ and Oladipo may be a better trade for both teams than it may seem. Option number 3, the Supermax Swap. When the Supermax contract was first introduced, it was branded to keep superstars in small markets. What it's actually done is create some of the worst contracts in the NBA today. In the Pistons' perpetual reach for mediocrity, the idea of a Blake Griffin-centered Westbrook trade actually makes sense. In this Pistons trade, Houston receives Blake and his $36 million a year contract, young forward Svi Mykhailiuk, and the 7th pick in this draft, along with another first-rounder and cash compensation. If Blake comes back healthy this season, imagine a small ball lineup featuring a somewhat healthy Blake Griffin running and catching lobs in an up-tempo Rockets offense. The Rockets' new coach had to diet Blake and Dwight Powell last year in Dallas to throw lobs, so Blake running a similar role in the Rockets' offense is very feasible. The 2 first-round picks would be required in pretty much any trade to get Westbrook, but I could honestly see the Rockets be willing to do a similar deal with only 1 first-round pick. The salaries in this trade only differ by $3 million, and both teams acquire significant pieces to make deeper, different playoff runs, which seems like a win-win to me. Option 4, the Blockbuster. The Clippers are going all in a way that's somewhat frightening to me. I imagine the Clippers owner Steve Ballmer literally bored at his own games a couple years from now, watching a Kawhi and Paul George-less Clippers team when they leave in free agency. We saw the catastrophe that was the Paul George and the Clippers in the bubble, so in a move of complete desperation, this trade features the Rockets sending Russell Westbrook, Austin Rivers, and a second-round pick in exchange for Paul George and Landry Shamet. Personally, I hate this trade from both sides, but the reason I placed it in my top 4 was because of its likelihood and its sheer insanity. Both combinations of Paul George and James Harden and Kawhi and Russell Westbrook are boom or bust scenarios. If they work, they'll be immediate title contenders. But if they don't, expect another early playoff exit from both teams. Salary-wise, I don't think the Clippers would really care that they would be gaining nearly $9 million more in extra salary if that meant Steve Ballmer could be able to cheer Russell Westbrook. To be honest, I really want to see this trade happen, not because it works for both teams, but just to see the egos clash once it goes through. Russell Westbrook demanding a trade places the entire Western Conference in a very specific place. Either complete ignorance or pants-wetting fear. A trade to a middling team like Charlotte or Detroit will create yet another Russ alone experiment like his last years in Oklahoma City, which he seems to prefer. On the other hand, a trade with Indiana or even the Clippers would send shockwaves through whichever conference he arrives in. Russ will be Russ. The only question is, where will that happen? Thank you for watching. Comment below where you think Russ will end up, and be sure to subscribe for more videos.